opinions. Haven't seen that joke before. Everyone has them, and in the Pokemon community, they're usually pretty dicey. Come on, just go on Twitter and you'll see at least one person defending Game Freak making Defog and HM in Gen 4. No, seriously, what was Sinnoh's deal? And hey, you know who else has opinions? Me. Yeah, apparently some people wanted to know my favorite Pokemon and stuff. Now, I don't know why you'd want that, but I'll do it regardless. My favorite Pokemon, games, other things I like, etc. Now, there's no specific format to this I want to go for, no top 10s or anything, so, time to yap. Everyone has a favorite Pokemon. Even if you don't follow the series, you've got 1,025 options plus different varieties of said options to choose from. One of those is bound to stand out, even if it's like Watchog or something. And I might have a soft spot for some of these guys. In terms of starters, I'm Team Trico myself. Look at him, he's just a little guy. The perfect combination of cute and cool. And luckily, it's one of the starters that stays good through all three of its stages. Groval's not only really cool looking, but also... oh man. And Sceptile's pretty great too, with that old Christmas tree tail, even if it does look a little bit bald. And also, they're lizards, and I like reptiles because they're neat. Honestly, no other starters stand out nearly as much to me. I mean, maybe Bulbasaur. I like Bulbasaur. I love how intricate and well thought out Skeledirge's design is, but most of the other starters are kind of interchangeable. Sacrilege, I know. But that doesn't necessarily mean I hate any of them. Come on, look at this. Legendaries are always popular, and my vote for the best one either goes to Kyurem or Koraidon. Kyurem because it's just such an interesting concept. For a legendary to be this incomplete, weak creature that's like a sort of boogeyman for the entirety of Lacunosa Town, with all the residents hiding away at night. Not to mention that whole fusion element, even if White Kyurem looks like an overdesigned Deviant OC. And Koraidon? Funny sandwich dog lizard. See, I named him John McCycle. Honorable mentions to Necrozma for pretty much the same reasons as Kyurem. Nah, yeah, one and the same. Type Null and Silvally because what they have going on is very sweet. And Mewtwo. They have a really neat backstory, but the problem is that makes them better as a character rather than a pocket monster. Just having a Mewtwo isn't as cool as having the Mewtwo. Come on, I have an open space for Trauma on my team. Mythicals, basically tiny legendaries. I like Meloetta. It is a simple but fun design, or should I say designs. The hair being sheet music, simple but very effective, and not to mention the incredibly catchy song. Their cry is pretty unique too. But at the same time, it's still no. Plus, the Arya form shiny kind of looks like Hatsune Miku, and that's worth an extra 1,000 points on its own. I mentioned the reptile thing, right? Well, I also happen to like the Sandile line. In terms of regional forms, I'd probably go to Alolan Ninetales for just being so pretty. It's got a neat typing, too. Either that or the Galarian Zigzagoon line, because haha, funny Kiss reference, but also Obstagoon was the MVP during my Shield playthrough. And my overall favorite is probably Absol. Not exactly an original choice, but hey, it's a good choice. Okay, maybe not gameplay-wise. Such a good design. Again, it's that combination of cute and cool, but this time with an added little tiny extra dash of edge. That hair is perfection, look at that. It even gets a pretty cool megaform that absolutely reeks of 2000s internet, and that is perfect. Of course, there are plenty more Pokemon I have a fondness for, but these are some of the first that came to mind when I think of Pokemon I like. Chatot's fun mainly because you can make it swear and I have the mental age of a 2-year-old. Umbreon's my favorite evolution, kind of for the same reasons as Absol, and Leafeon's a close second. Heck, I don't even think Leafeon Shiny's that bad, especially in Gen 9. Hey, speaking of Shinies... even a Pokemon you don't like can have a fantastic shiny. Bruxish isn't exactly too popular, but Pizza Bruxish? I'll take 20, please. And of course, good Pokemon have good shinies too. Usually. I already like Scizor quite a lot, and the lime green shiny really isn't that bad, especially considering what some people say about green shinies. It was already a pretty nice shade, but then Scarlet and Violet came in with the gorgeous metallic texture to it. I mean, that's not necessarily a shiny only thing, but shut up, it looks awesome. Shiny Gardevoir is probably my overall favorite. Oh, your favorite's Gardevoir. What's going on there? What's that about? It's just a really appealing color scheme. The light green and pink are really nice, but that lively blue hair and soft orange chest piece is on another level entirely. And not to turn this into a 3D versus 2D debate, but oh, it looked even better back then. I guess to balance that out, though, 3D has Mega Gardevoir with a deep black dress. This is fantastic. My funeral's bound to be a riot. I mean, it's no surprise I think the black shiny's cool. That's a pretty common joke. If Pokemon fans could choose a shiny, 9 times out of 10, it would be black and red. And hey, there's a reason for that. It's because they're cool. Aegislash? Come on. You can't hate the shiny unless you hate the shiny. Koraidon's is so great that it's been gatekept for almost 2 years now. I'm getting anxious. And Charizard is indeed very overdone. Hell, specifically the shiny form has been one of the most popular cards in like 7 different TCG sets. But there's a reason. The blood red wings and a charcoal body, they let me tolerate seeing Charizard for an extra couple seconds. Plenty of shinies do suck, don't get me wrong. In fact, I'd argue that like half the shinies suck, but a shiny's a shiny no matter how much it pisses me off. Getting the shinies can be fun too with so many different methods and shortcuts. What do you mean you can buy them on eBay? What do you mean 3017 sold? And I've gone on record saying SOS hunting reigns supreme. Lots of Pokemon to hunt for, pretty easy to jump right into, and it satiates my need for bloodlust. Alright, this is where it might get a little hairy. Someone's favorite Pokemon game can say a lot about them. Like if someone's favorite game is Pokemon Zany cards for the Pokemon mini system, that means they are a liar. But my personal favorite Pokemon game is... You know what? I want to give some context leading into this. I discovered Pokemon around the 2nd grade through classmates with the TCG. Of course, Pokemon cards and schools don't mix and they were promptly banned, but that is when I started to become more interested in this slop. Now, my first Pokemon game was Pokemon Y. Being birthed in 2005 will do that to you. I was at a grocery store of all places with my grandma, and I guess she felt like spoiling the little brat that was me, so guess what I got? And again, since this was my first Pokemon game, I had no clue what I was doing. I was really confused when I couldn't find a jump button, and that is not a joke. But I digress. I had fun with the game, even though now most people see X and Y as being kinda sterile. But see, I ended up figuring that out myself after my second Pokemon game gave me a much better point of reference with the amount of content and personality it had. That same year, Christmas of 2013, the same grandmother, I mean it'd have to be, the other one's dead, got me what became my favorite Pokemon game, Black 2. A cliche answer? Probably. But this just feels like the Pokemon game that does the most right. And at the time, it felt a lot more special than X and Y did. Story? Not one of the best, but still pretty great. Aesthetics? Absolutely gorgeous overworlds, and pretty nice looking battles aside from stuff like... Soundtrack? So good, so lively with tons of small details. Stuff like the percussion and root themes only playing when you walk. Or the Icarus City theme adding clapping sounds when you're next to these guys. Great Pokédex variety, and the amount of content, my god! Comparing the Black and White 1 map to the sequels makes it feel tiny. And of course, inside that map, there's just so much stuff to do. And look, I'm not someone who hates 3D Pokemon, far from it, but these games just feel more special than what came after. But who knows, nostalgia can be one heck of a drug. But this isn't the only Pokemon game I like. I'm one of the sick freaks that really loves Ultra Sun and Moon. Base Sun and Moon are alright, but the Ultra games, as scummy as they may have been, have great visuals, quite a lot of content with side stuff like the Poképelago, Mantine Surfing, and Pokéfinder, and it also has a pretty alright plot. Oh, and the cutscenes? Kind of annoying, but really not that bad. You're a big kid now, you can read. Scarlet and Violet are tough. I love them, I really do, and they would probably be my absolute favorites if they functioned. Look, I get that different people have different experiences with this game. Some are lucky enough to have no lag, no bugs, no crashes, but that wasn't the case for me. Textures are popping in and out all the time. I've had plenty of lag spikes, some of them lasting upwards of 10 whole seconds, full-on crashes, one of which lost me a shiny Lycanroc. I'll miss you. And even beyond that, this game is just missing a lot of stuff. Like, this is the first Pokemon game since Crystal, not counting Let's Go, to not have any sort of battle facility. And no, we're not counting Blueberry Academy. It may give you BP, but that is a lie, I tell you. But then the characters, story, music, even gameplay loop are some of the best in the series. I want this franchise to be good. But at least the spin-offs haven't let us down before, except when they have. And my personal favorites got to be Explorers of Sky Bookend Tournament. Look, as any true Pokemon fan would, I adore the characters and story in Explorers of Sky. In most aspects, it's far beyond any of the mainline games. Loving stories in games, though, unfortunately, doesn't make me care about the Mystery Dungeon gameplay. But Pokémon Tournament, on the other hand, is just so fun. Stringing together combos is satisfying, the roster is really well chosen. It's not just the super popular picks, there's stuff like Krogunk, Chandelure, Aegislash, Darkrai, the kinds of Pokemon that you wouldn't really expect in a fighting game. And I mean, story mode exists. Now, here's my confession about this game. I don't own it. I've kinda sorta only played it through a Wii U emulator official means, but I do still love it if it counts. But yeah, I'd love to see them iron out some issues in another Pokemon fighter, even if it isn't necessarily Pokken 2. And if that does happen, I really do hope they keep the freaky art style. Of course, honorable mentions to dang, I don't really care for most of the Pokemon spin-offs I've played. The Rumble games just kind of exist. I fell out of Conquest. I didn't get far into any of the Ranger games. I have yet to try XD. Pokemon Go actively makes me angry. Pokemon Pinball Ruby and Sapphire. See, now this is the real best one. Now what about least favorite games, or ones I think are overrated? This could be dicey. Okay, Heart Gold, Soul Silver aren't as good as people say. Okay, next segment, next segment! I don't think there's a single bad Pokemon region design, except for Galar without the DLC. Well, look, I drew it. Like, for as overused and kind of bland Kanto is, it does have its own personality, with places like the Cinnabar Mansion, Viridian Forest, and Lavender Town. Alola's great for sticking to its theme so well, and on a gameplay front, despite what people say about Sun and Moon and Sword and Shield, Alola at least has some decently varied route design with quite a few totally optional side areas. But overall, I think the best region would have to be Sinnoh. The lore surrounding it's integrated pretty well, especially with places like Celestic Town or Eterna City. The colder climate added in Platinum makes it stand out a lot, especially considering we have like 3 regions that are kind of tropical already. Heck, actually, Sinnoh isn't even safe. This might sound kind of weird to say, but Sinnoh feels the most like an open world region, the way everything intertwines and connects. See, these games were innovators, even if they sucked. Tons of regions already have a sort of hub city that branches off into several different directions. Think Saffron, Mauville, and of course Lumiose. But Sinnoh just feels like it has more. Jubilife, Hearthome, Eterna, and kind of Orberg all branch off into multiple different directions spanning across the region. Even Mount Coronet kind of has this, even though it's mostly separate maps. It practically splits the region in two, and to get places during your journey, you have to go in and out of it over and over, and oh, that's just so cool! And that's not to mention all the optional areas that are tucked away or otherwise fun to explore. Fuego Ironworks, Pokemon Mansion, Old Chateau, Route 224. Let's just ignore the HMs though, okay? Like, Unova has tons of optional stuff too, but the region, as much as I love it, is really just a straight line in terms of navigation. Even if the sequels did do it a tad better, it's nowhere near the level of intricacy Sinnoh has. But you know, the landscape and design aren't the only things that make a region memorable. Pokemon are cool, but the characters? They're where the magic is. Oh, look at this high fantasy. Sword and Shield did a lot of things wrong, but Hop wasn't one of them. He's genuinely a really compelling character with an interesting and pretty realistic concept behind him. Living in his brother's shadow only to keep getting knocked down when he tries to get up to that level? That's tragic. The only problem here, though, is that he is trapped in Sword and Shield. Okay, the games aren't all bad, but the storytelling... Need I remind you of the plot point that was resolved by a PNG? Quite literally, all of Scarlet and Violet's cast is likable, from the Zero crew to the BB League to the gym leaders to the school staff. Special shoutouts to Jock, I do not know how he got hired. It genuinely makes me sad to think about how we'll never see these people again. Emma isn't all too prominent. She only appears in the pitifully small X and Y postgame, and for 90% of her questline, she is hardly even her own character. But when she herself does appear, it's very sweet, especially at the end. I guess she's more so just neat rather than a super great character or anything. Blue's pretty cool just for how he's changed over the years. His snark never really went away, but you can tell through his Johto and Alola iterations that he has grown as a person. In terms of villains, Lusamine is probably the most interesting, even if Ultra Sun and Moon kinda sorta hit her on the head. Natural Harmonia Gropius. Yeah, the human characters are pretty great. Who needs the monsters? I want a game about the gym leaders. Like, come on, this is awesome. Yeah, it's because she sings. There really is a lot of stuff in Pokemon to like. Some of that stuff being completely superfluous and probably a waste of time, but it's still fun to talk about anyway. Favorite type? Dark. Yes, mostly because edge. But also it has cool moves. Dark Pulse, Batty Bad, Crossroad Killing, like come on. Evil teams tend to really be hit or miss sometimes. Team Flare. But the good ones can really hit. Team Skull is so much fun, just a bunch of hooligans, but they love each other. Po-Town is always a highlight in Alola playthroughs. Team Star's great for their characters and their motivations, but they feel even less like an evil team than something like Team Yell, honestly. But I mean, these are all just a bunch of kids, so if we're counting actual evil teams, Team Plasma, I guess. Favorite anime? I haven't watched much, but like, I don't know, Origins, even though that doesn't count. Indigo League has a certain cozy feel to it that I think hasn't been recaptured yet, but hey, I'm gonna watch Horizons at some point, trust me. There are way more manga adaptations than people tend to think. The quote Pokemon manga usually refers to adventures, but there's also Pokemon Pocket Monsters, The Electric Tale of Pikachu, movie adaptations, Diamond and Pearl Adventure, which is different from Adventures Diamond and Pearl, I guess. All that being said, yeah, it's adventures. I haven't read all of it, but I really like what I have read. Ruby and Sapphire is probably my favorite art because of the characters. Aw, look at them go. Favorite soundtrack? That goes to Scarlet and Violet easily. From the province themes to the many battle themes, everything is fantastic. Special shoutouts to Battle Northern Pokemon for being such a vibe. Plus, a lot of this music's dynamic depending on what you're doing, so that's an automatic 10 out of 10. Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire too, recreating Hoenn's already iconic music with synths and orchestras, although I guess we did tragically lose the trumpets. Gimmick? Gameplay-wise, it's terrestrialization. It allows for the most customizability, and in something like Pokemon, that's what matters the most. And of course, as overdone as the discussion is, Megas were great and they do deserve to return. Although this time, they better stick to Pokemon that deserve a second chance over ones that were already good. If we see a Mega Fluttermane or something, I will shriek, and not in a good way. Minigame? You know I love the slots. Ultra Warp Ride gets me easy shinies. Voltorb Flip reminds me that I'm bad at math. Oh, actually, it's that weird bike race from Sword and Shield, purely because nobody remembers it. Pokemon really means so much to different people, and every single element means something different to someone. Like, everyone probably has a unique favorite berry from each other. Roselli Berry Supremacy, by the way. And it's always pretty cool to see and hear about everyone's own experiences and opinions, even if they are blatantly wrong. Oh, that Heart Gold and Soul Silver comment? Yeah, don't worry about that, I was just thinking out loud. It's not like that game has a horrible level curve, ho-hum Pokemon variety, added side content that fails to make up for the lack of interesting changes to the original game, a bad story, and a map that's way too big with very little of substance in it or anything. Wait, what was that?